Hi, I'm Dennis Meyers, Assistant Executive Director for Governmental Relations here at CSBA. Today we participated in two media events in Northern California along with our Education Coalition partners, and we wanted to report that to you today. The first event was in Sacramento, held right near the Capitol, and the second event was in Union City. I represented you in the Sacramento event, and then your president, Jill Wins from San Francisco, represented you in the Union City event. The issues that we focused on are the issues that we're going to be talking about between now and the Governor's May revision. It's issues that we're going to be talking about in Sacramento, and hopefully that you can hold conversations with your legislators locally and also take into your community events too, whether it's you're talking to your chambers of commerce or your Kiwanis, any of your community events that you're either speaking to or just going and talking to folks. Our message, I think, would fit into all those conversations. What we focused on today is the fact that schools in California have taken $20 billion in cuts and deferrals in the last 4 budget cycles, and we've pretty much had enough. That's a conversation you know how to have because you've experienced the budget cuts and you've experienced those really gut-wrenching meetings that you've gone through to implement all of those cuts. At the same time, we've talked about the need for new revenue. Now, as an Education Coalition, we have not settled on any one of the initiatives that are headed toward the November ballot, but we do all agree across the board that we do need new revenues. Funding in California has been, state support for schools has been dismal for a long time, especially over the last 4 or 5 budgets. And now we rank at the bottom in almost all categories as far as per ADA funding, but also in the number of adults per student in almost every category, whether it's counselors or principals or any of the important support functions that we provide to kids. Other issues that we talk about too is the fact that there are a handful of policy proposals in the governor's budget that we as a coalition certain organizations may be interested in, others straight out oppose, but we all agree that this isn't the time to have these diversions of our interests as far as diversions away from the fact that we need additional revenues and that we've taken enough cuts. The first of those is the weighted student formula proposal. While that may sound interesting in different times, right now it's a real difficult conversation to talk about reallocating resources from one district to the other because there's no hold harmless, or the fact that in the future we would be steering new resources as districts are at the bottom of the funding levels that they've seen in a generation, trying to come out of that while certain money is going to be going to certain districts as opposed to other districts because of the implementation of the formula. What we're telling legislators, and hopefully you can communicate that locally as well, is that this isn't the time to be reallocating resources. Everybody across the board, big district, small district, urban, rural, has incredible needs right now, and this is the time that we need to be adding back to the program statewide, not implementing other programs and other schemes to reallocate resources. Also, the governor's proposed a mandate proposal too that we're just saying, you know what, these may have merit, but dealing with these in the budget process right now when schools are hurting really is just a diversion. And we'd like to put that through policy committee hearings that may take more time, not on the effort to just kill these and brush them under the carpet, but to have a real good dialogue so that when there is revenue, we can really talk about these new ideas. The last thing that we're talking about too is the trigger provision that the governor's proposed in his January budget. As you know, almost all of his budget is predicated on the passage of an initiative on the November ballot. For the school part of that, there's a trigger provision that says if that initiative does not pass, then schools would face a funding cut. And there's parts of that cut that are really onerous. The first part is a manipulation of Proposition 98 and the attempt to place bond payments that now come out of the state general fund into the Proposition 98 guarantee, which would then squeeze out about $377 per student from the revenue limits. So it's a way for the governor to propose what, in essence, is a suspension of Proposition 98 without actually asking the legislature to make that tough vote. What we're saying is Proposition 98 is a constitutional guarantee. It should not be manipulated, especially in times like that. The other thing, too, is that trigger, because of the way it's implemented is schools, although we're 40% of the state general fund, would actually result in about 90% of those trigger cuts. So two real hard, tough provisions that we're trying to instill in the minds of legislators as to why those triggers are particularly harmful for schools in this instance. So as we approach the budget season, what we're asking you to do is hold these conversations locally between now and when we have the May revision coming out in May. And then we will focus our attentions, obviously, on our new Legislative Action Day on June 1st. In the past, we've had Legislative Action Day in May, where we've called members, CSB members, to Sacramento to meet with legislators in their legislative offices in the Capitol. This year, we're trying to turn this all locally so that you can have more time to meet with your legislators, and hopefully, because it takes less time and cost, we would have more school board members and governance teams participate. So on June 1st, instead of calling everybody here to Sacramento, what we will do is have you meet locally in the legislative district offices with your senators and assembly members to convey some of these messages, but also to convey messages that come out of the analysis of the governor's May revision. So we want to partner with you. Obviously, we're working hard in Sacramento, and we want to partner with you locally to take that message locally, because this is a real tough budget year, and we really need to stay working as a team here in Sacramento, you locally, to be able to make sure that this budget actually makes sense and comes together in a way that makes sense not only for you as a governing board member, but also for the programs and the kids that you care so much about. Thank you.